and just to see if the counsels were good for my physical body as along with my mental. And I did find that the diet that went along with the mental also corrected the physical. And that experience became my first book, Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion. And this is when I realized that the language that is in the Bible, it's really not the language that is traditionally taught in the seminaries to pastors that we listen to. What's really taught in seminaries has really nothing to do with what is in the Bible. And so the more that I began to understand the benefit of the words, the more I began to pry even more. Like, if this is really, if the words are really as powerful as they are from my mind, and I'm applying them to my body, and I'm seeing a real change in health and a liveliness to my mind cognitively, then something has to be deeper than this. And that's when I began to look at the original language, translating the English into Greek and Hebrew, and forming, the sentences, and then retranslating those sentences back into English from Greek and Hebrew. And
Wow.
when I did that, I began to learn the context of the words that were being spoken, and I began to see how the Christian religion doesn't really embellish, but kind of omits a lot while embellishing what was really spoken. And that's when you see the different concepts that the Bible teaches, the fact that there was an actual man that did teach a specific philosophy, and he was crucified because of that revolutionary thought, and that this individual is not the figure that the Christian religion teaches. And then from there, there's a history of how did the Christian religion get to this one character, and then you see the transitioning of different similar characters from different other religions that now are in the Christian religion. So then you weigh that with what the Bible actually teaches, and the philosophies are quite different, and the goals of them, they're quite, left and right.
There's really no need for a church if you get to that point, right? Of understanding. The church becomes sort of useless.
In a sense, it depends, because when you have a group of individuals that are informed on the language and the context, then the community feel and the community aspect can be accomplished with more precision, as opposed to church now being a place where you can either showboat with your clothes, or you can go and sit down and listen to someone who you perceive is enlightened, who really does not, as I'm learning or as I've been told, are not fully believing what they're teaching, because what they're teaching in the seminary isn't really what they know is to be true, and what they're reading within the Bible is actually about. So, in a sense, the Bible is not written for church, and that may
Right.
be hard to hear, but the Bible is written for the church within, so that what is within can then benefit what is without, and what we do without can be a physical church, but within, what is within has to first come to that realization.
I think you brought up a good point about the church and community,
Yeah,
because the physical building, the people getting together,
yeah,
um, and with the Protestant churches, particularly in the United States, I grew up in that kind of an environment. My grandfather went every Sunday, and when I was a little kid, I was taken. But it was more of just, it was like a social gathering more than
yeah,
anything else.
exactly.
And everybody got together, and then after church, they all had potluck lunch, and everybody sat around and ate. And, it was just like that's what you did on Sunday. So I can see where the benefit is for that. But when you start digging into the real kind of hardcore
Yeah,
meanings of it, yeah, you're right. I think it's something you have to find within yourself, yeah? That did
that's
anyone influence you at all, or did you do this all on your own?
no, I had no influence. The only influence that I had was really myself. I think that the when you can see yourself in a tragic state, it makes you anxious. And when you can realize in that state that no one around you has anything that can benefit you, to help you, you become even more anxious. And then that's when you start to pull information from out of nowhere. And me pulling information from out of nowhere really didn't do anything for me. So I had to, go back and to realize, you know what, I've been raised in this way. I haven't been brought up in it. Let me just see what it actually is. And I went into it. I found health for my mind and also for my body. And I found also that it's really not exactly what everybody else has been saying. And that has been my motivation to speak publicly. There's a lot of people that are sitting in churches and they're waiting for the pastors to say something that's going to make them go, yes, finally I'm here and I believe everything I'm supposed to believe. But that's really not how it goes. They're not going to hear anything special from a pastor. They're not going to catch anything from some kind of, something that they believe is beneficial. It takes putting the words in the book into practice, whether we believe those words are contradictory, because on the surface they are contradictory, but in reality they're not contradictory. So going through that experience of what you believe is contradictory and feeling the loss of not knowing what those words mean, to gaining an understanding from the experience to know what those words mean, and then to just repeat the cycle to gain a better understanding for wisdom to live by through those words that you can then develop as your own and cultivate and live by. So that's the main goal within the Bible. It's a philosophy of not simply of self, but of being, of being, so that the self can understand how it needs to live in this world, personally, family, economically, industrially, in all sorts of facets.